Hello everyone, it's me again, and I'm here with another video. Today's video will be, what if DreamWorks made a Transformers movie? So let's begin. In this time we never got the Bay films. So, in March of 2010, and yes, this is again taking over the place of How to Train Your Dragon, this will be Transformers. The plot is identically similar to the first Michael Bay film. Like, I think Shia LaBeouf could have still played Sam, or in this case, Spike. Michaela would be switched out in favor of Carly, who would be Spike's childhood friend, and I think Rosie Huntington Whitley could have still played her. And of course, Spike would be accompanied by Kicker, his former bully, and Chip Chase. So I could see being both played by Tobey Maguire and perhaps Jonah Hill, or maybe Travis Van Winkle still. As for the Autobots, they'd be the same, but with Transformers Prime designs, and the Autobot cast would be Optimus Prime, played by Peter Cullen. Bumblebee, played by Dylan O'Brien. Ironhide, played by Vin Diesel. Ratchet, played by Jeffrey Combs. Jazz, played by Anthony Mackie, I would say. Prowl, played by Paul Walker. And RC, played by Megan Fox. On second thought, instead of Prowl, I would say Wheeljack, who I could see being played James Horan. As for the Decepticons, they would be Megatron, played by Frank Welker. Starscream, played by Paul Rubens. Soundwave, also played by Welker. Shockwave, played by David Warner. Thundercrack, Knockout, played by Adam Lambert. For the last two, they would be Barricade, played by Adam Driver, and Arachne, played by Gina Torres. During the final battle, the only casualties of the final battle would be Jazz and Barricade. And Megatron also survives. So yeah, it's basically it. It's kind of like the first movie, but just more DreamWorks-fied. Well, kind of like my first rewrite in ways, also. Next movie is Transformers 2, released in 2014 during the 30th anniversary of the franchise. New characters that would be introduced would be Sideswipe, played by James Remmer. Sunstreaker, played by Corey Feldman. Hot Rod, played by Grant Gustin or Joe Carey. Either one would work. Now, Bumblebee would be kind of like Hiccup, and his whole arc is that in this film he starts having visions of becoming the next Prime after Optimus. Also, another new Autobot would be Chromia, played by Natalie Portman or Courtney Cox or even Winona Ryder. Either one of the three. But Bumblebee feels like he's not ready to become a Prime yet, but Optimus would make sure that if you're going to be my successor, Bumblebee, you can't be just a tough guy. Hold on, that's not the whole sentence. Here, let me look up Larry Collin quote. What I'm trying to say, Optimus would say this: if you're going to be a Prime, be a real Prime. Be strong enough to be gentle. That would come from Peter's late brother, Larry. Bumblebee and Hot Rod would be kind of like rivals, more so friendly ones. As for new Decepticons, they would be Thundercracker, played by Joe Manganiello, Skyward, played by Adam, someone like Kit Harington, I think. Lockdown, played by Lance Henriksen, and the Fallen would serve as the main antagonist, and he would be played by Tony Todd. I thought the Overlord at first, Overlord, but I was like, the Fallen kind of works perfectly. Now, basically, Optimus would die during the Force battle, and yeah, this is kind of like Revenge of the Fallen, the first half, my rewrite, except Lee One's not in it, because when they get to Cybertron to find a way to bring Optimus back, Bumblebee would be Alita 1, and we would see the backstory of what happened to Alita 1. And Optimus would also not have died during the Force fight, just slightly injured. And of course, we'd see Optimus's and Megatron's backstory in this film and how Megatron came to be. As for Lee One, I would say Julianne Moore would play her. And of course, we get introduced to the Dinobots: Grimlock, Swoop, Slug, Snarl, and Sludge. Played by Greg Berger, Derek Mears, Hayne Hodder, and Donna Purcell and Tyler Main. Essentially, Optimus and Grimlock would have a scuffle like an Age of Extinction, but then Optimus would peg Grimlock like Hiccup did to Toothless, earning their trust. Meanwhile, Shockwave would have his own creations known as the Predacons, led by Predacane, who I can see being played by either Idris Elba or Jeremy Irons. And he would be Grimlock's rival in this film. Now, during the climax, Raw Witwicky, or Irvin Witwicky in this case, would be killed off, thus giving the Decepticons a win. And then, of course, during the final battle, the Dinobots would be facing off against Predacane. And then, apparently, Optimus and Megatron have to team up to stop the Fallen, but then I'm picturing the final battle taking place on the Nemesis, and then when Megatron kills the Fallen, apparently Megatron is assumed dead after he throws Optimus off of the Nemesis. And apparently Optimus thinks Megatron is dead, his old friend. But then movie would end identically to the original Revenge of the Fallen, but except Megatron is floating in space where he meets a giant planet. Which leads into the third and final movie, Transformers Finest Hour, or this case, Transformers Darkest Hour. The movie would pick up where the previous film left off, and it would be Unicron, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, who turns Megatron into Galvatron, as well as Thundercracker and Skywarp into Scourge and Cyclonus. Elements from the Predacons Rising and the G1 movie be taken. The Autobots would, of course, have built Autobot City, and they're facing off against different Decepticons, well, what's left of them. Starscream would have gotten new Decepticons like Slipstream, played Jessica Chastain, and who else? Oh yeah, the Combaticons. Onslaught, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, Swindle, played by Fred Willard, Brawl, played by Sylvester Stallone, Vortex, played by James Spader, and Blastoff, played by Walton Goggins, who would all form into Bruticus. The first fight would happen in Autobot City when Starscream's Decepticons would invade. And apparently, there would be some new Autobots that would have met Spike in the game. And they would have been important in the second film. And Bumblebee continues having visions of being the future Prime. For the records, they would be Ultra Magnus, played by Michael Ironside, Bulkhead, played by John Goodman, Prowl, played by Keanu Reeves, Perceptor, played by David Tennant. Warpath, played by Dave Bautista. Sea Spray, played by Yala. The actor played Black Manta and Aquaman, and Moonracer, played by Daisy Ridley. And of course, before the Battle of Abot City, Bumblebee would meet an Abot jet named Windblade, played by Karen Fukihara. Now, a lot of you are going to say I've been forgetting about Jetfire. Jetfire would have still been in Transformers 2 and would be played by Hugh Jackman. Now, apparently, back to the Battle of Abot City. The Autobots and Decepticons have an intense fight, which leads to Galvatron, Scourge, and Cyclonus coming in, and then Galvatron kills Starscream. And there would be some losses like Warpath and... Yeah, I think Warpath would be the only loss of the Autobots. And so Optimus gets captured so he could be brought to Unicron on Cybertron. And Unicron plans on eating Cybertron. And so Bumblebee has to help Optimus and save him. Optimus would then find out that Galvatron is Megatron, and so Unicron begins unleashing zombified Terrorcons on Cybertron. And of course, this would lead to the final battle, where Optimus uses ground bridge technology from Wheeljack and Perceptor to get into Unicron's spark chamber, as well as Bumblebee, to take down Unicron. But before then, there would be a fight between Optimus and Galvatron, where Optimus would have used the Star Saber, which would have been introduced in Transformers 2, and basically uses it to break Galvatron out of Megatron's control, Unicron's control, and this would be like a little redemption arc here. Apparently, the final battle would basically be the Autobots taking down a good amount of the Decepticons, like Bruticus, as well as Arachnid and Lockdown. And of course, the Terracons. There'd be some losses like Sea Spray. Also in this movie, Spring would be introduced and he would be playing Nathan Fillion. Or Glenn Powell. And Nathan would play Prowl. But Wheeljack would have ended up dying. Now during the final battle in Unicron's chamber, it's essentially Unicron's Spark versus Optimus and Bumblebee. Initially they are overwhelmed until Galvatron comes in and weakens Unicron's spark chamber, and so the fight turns on the tide, and so Optimus and Galvatron with their Star Sabers, the Dark Star Saber and the normal Star Saber Optimus has, throws at Unicron's spark, which turns blue, and Bumblebee is saved by Windblade, who would have participated in the final battle, and their romance would have grown. For Spike and Carly, they have like a marriage subplot where Spike is preparing to propose to Carly. When Unicron is destroyed, as he would be in robot form, would have transformed to robot form during the second half, Unicron blows up and Bumblebee and Windblade land on the ground. And then we see the Matrix and the Star Saber land on Cybertron's ground, and then Bumblebee would pick up the Matrix. Then the touch would start to play, with Optimus saying, "Arise, Goldbug Prime." And Bumblebee would say, "Optimus." And Bumblebee, of course, becomes Goldbug. And then there would be a scene where Spike and the gang, who would have been on Cybertron, would have been returned home to Earth. Spike and Carly get married. And of course, then in the future, they would have a son named Daniel, who would meet Goldbug Prime. And some Autobots like Windblade, Ultra Magnus, RC, Hot Rod, Ratchet, and Ironhide. And Goldbug and Daniel's meeting would be similar to that of how Bumblebee met Spike in the first movie. Thus, it all comes full circle in the end. And then the ending speech would be given out by Optimus Prime, which would be similar to the... It'd be like a mix between the one he gave out in Predacons Rising and Finest Hour, where he would end this movie by saying, "Till all are one." And then we would see Optimus's face forming in stars in the sky as the movie comes to a close. Now, in 2025, there would be a spin-off about the Wreckers and what they were like before the events of the original trilogy. Or more likely, Transformers 1, which would have been released in 2024 still. Taking over the place of Wild Robot. Likely mean that the Wild Robot would be delayed to June of 2025. That's only my guess, but still. And in June of 2027, we would be getting Transformers 2, the sequel to Transformers 1 we never got. And I think Transformers 1 would have been basically the same movie, honestly. Except Megatronus, his death would have to be slightly changed to where it's assumed Megatronus died, only for him to turn out that he's been alive still, or maybe with Dark Energon, Megatron would plan on using it to bring the Fallen back. Something like that. But Transformers would became like the next Shrek, meaning that Shrek 5 would not happen in this timeline. So that's what if DreamWorks made a Transformers movie. Anyways, bye.